Hello, welcome to another tutorial video. What we're going to be looking at now is another AQA marked high grade response. So this is the AA star band. It's for the first question on the reading section, and it will be worthwhile for us to look over it because we get to compare it to the assessment objectives that are outlined here, and also our kind of simplification of them on the we've put in blue. So this is just going to kind of drill this home. We've done a video explaining this, and we've had examiner comments before, but I know a lot of you just want as many kind of A-star pieces of material to look over as possible. So hopefully looking over another piece here is only going to help us. So we remember first and foremost that this is our reading question, and it's the retrieval and infer question. So we have to be able to pick out things, read and understand the text, and select a material appropriate to purpose, and make comparisons and cross references. Now in the assessment objective there, it doesn't actually specifically highlight infer, but we get the idea of infer from understand. So that's basically ask us to infer the extra elements, or even though here you don't see the word interpret anyway in here, but you'll see straight away if I just highlight this point down here and this point down here, you see that they've been given marks for interpretation, because interpretation and inference come under the banner of understanding. So bear that in mind. Inferring things here is quite important as well, as you're about to see hopefully as we go through this. So what do you learn from Elizabeth Hyde's article about where she has been and what she has been doing? You learn that Elizabeth, her husband, and 3 teenage children are going on a 13-day, 225-mile trip down the Adordo River through the Grand Canyon. Okay, so they've got 2 marks there, and it's shown an understanding. It has actually obviously read and understood and collated it all together quite well. So we find out that lots of little facts together: 1, 2, 3, 3 teenage children, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pieces of information, like taken out, summed up in one paragraph. Now you could actually stop the answer there, and you would have shown some understanding, but obviously you wouldn't have had shown understanding through the whole thing. What the candidate has done here is summed up the entire you summed up the gist of the entire article and then started to go through it chronologically. I definitely recommend going through it chronologically, because that way you're going to pick up as much or as many, should I say, items as possible. The first thing you learn though is that their guide, called Ed, gives them 2 rules, which are both stay in the boat. Remember as well, this is the reading paper. Your writing isn't marked as stringently. So even though we've got a couple of simple mistakes here, it's not to be held against the candidate. You later learn that Elizabeth violates the rules. So we've got 1 piece of information picked out and 2nd piece of information picked out there. And here's the first piece of inference. You later learn that Elizabeth violates the violates the rules. I was reading the quote that were from there, sorry. We hit one rapid at the wrong angle, and the boat rose up and pretty much ejected me into the foaming madness. For the next 45 seconds, I got sucked down and spun around and finally spat up into sunlight, gasping for air. That's quite a long quotation used. They obviously got the mark for using the quote for selecting material, but you wouldn't need to use one that long. And even if you did, remember you can just use ellipsis to kind of nullify using quite a lot of this. Because we're not going to analyze anything here. We're just using that to emphasize this part here: ejected me into the foaming madness. This sounds like a very scary experience, but you find out about Elizabeth's character and that she was more exhilarated than scared. So there's 2 ticks here and 1 tick here. So what the examiner's probably picked out is that you're picking up things about Elizabeth's character, which is showing a clear understanding, and that she was more exhilarated than scared. So you've understood what's happened, or this candidate's understood what's happened. They've also picked out what it actually says about her. So remember, the question is, what do we learn? And so what we're learning about Elizabeth's character, and that's been framed by using "you find out about," which is again a phrase you can use if you so wish, and that she was more exhilarated than scared. So that's extrapolated from that element of her character. You can see that the article is informal, as it says pretty much, which you would not expect to see in a formal piece of writing. Now you see this here isn't actually relevant. It's not anything that's going to be marked. You see, like picking up the tone of the writing or the language style of the writing is not something that's actually going to be marked. And you note here that while the examiners ticked it, they've also commented valid. So the point is accurate, but it's not necessarily valid to get full marks here. But this is obviously a very perceptive idea that's actually picked up on here. So that's going to be useful in gaining marks. You also learn about the group on the trip. We were in a mixed group. Our fellow passengers range from our 13-year-old twin daughters to a couple in their mid-70s. This shows that you don't have to be young and courageous to do things, and the trip can be enjoyed by people of any age. So remember our question, what do you learn from the article about where she had been? Well, we learn about where she'd been. We learn that anyone can do it, and that's actually put very concisely, and it's interpreted. So again, it's read and understand, and obviously we've picked that out, so we're selecting material appropriate to the person there. You find out that you find out that people on the trip have to mix, get along and make friends with others because they are not on the boat to eat, sleep and bath together. This tells you that you would make close friends on the trip. So I'm presuming part of this was part of quotation, and they've shown understanding quotation by this part here. This tells us that you would have to make close friends on the trip. You find out that the trip had made Elizabeth want to become a river guide. You don't actually find out if she is a river guide, but you know that the trip is worthwhile and will leave you a desire to do more things like it. So a clear interpretation, understanding of, again, what you learn. So this isn't heavy on the number. Let's look at the amount of different points made. 1, 2, relevant ones, 3, 4, 5. So as we mentioned in one of the earlier videos, we're always looking between 4 and 6, but every single point that they've actually picked out there, they've explained it. Remember, actually, they've actually made 6 points, but one of them wasn't valid. So it's really good for us to be able to make sure that we're looking to do 6 so that we can have a saving point if we've done something wrong. So for example, if this had only been 4 and it stopped there, it might not have actually continually shown the actual strong interpretation understanding that would have got the marks.